Imagine a 400 square foot room with an extremely tall ceiling. And then imagine this room filled with 30 tons of gold and silver. This was an offering that Francisco Pizarro received in exchange for the life of an Inca leader and the lives of his people. The Incas were a magnificent people that managed to create a very advanced empire in their time, but were defeated by a very small group of European Spaniards. I served a 2-year mission in the heart of the Inca Empire, which is modern-day Peru. And so I have learned through my mission and when I got home a little bit more about this specific civilization. The Inca civilization rose really quickly in less than 100 years, but it fell within like less than a year when these strange men in their steel armor and their steel swords showed up on horses, which weren't native to the country, and they were looking for the precious metals that were there. History teaches us that it can repeat itself, and even the strongest nations can fall. The Incas were an ancient race in South America that grew rapidly in power and wealth. This was due to their advancements in architecture, technology, and military strategy. The Incas developed some of their own ideas and technology, but they also borrowed some from the peoples that they had conquered and from older villages and stuff. The Inca architecture was way far advanced for their time. They would take the stone blocks and they would put wood wedges in the cracks of the stone, and then they would wet the wedges down with water, and when the wood would expand, it would crack the rock. And that's how they split the rocks in half and created the shapes that they wanted. Over here on this other computer, I have a few examples of the walls and stuff that they have created, so I'll show you that. This first one is an example of a wall there, and as you can see, they use many small pieces and some odd shapes. Now, a shape with like 4 or 5 sides is a lot harder to carve out than a stone with just 4 sides. This next picture is an example of a very famous wall there in Peru, in Cusco. It's called the 12-cornered stone, and as you can see, it has 12 sides to it. And all the pieces that are around it fit exactly in place. Oops. This last piece I thought was pretty interesting. There's that odd piece shape up there at the top in the middle that normally you probably wouldn't find. It's very unique, and I just liked how they put that in the middle of their wall. These stone walls and architectures were so well put together that they are known to not let a blade of grass fit in between them. And another fact about it is that they didn't even use mortar to hold them together. So it's all gravity and a tight fit between the rocks. Another unique thing that the Incas had come up with was their techniques with their farming. In Peru, there's a lot of like steep mountainsides, and it's very difficult to farm on the side of a mountain. So what they did was they came up with this step-like structure where it comes down, across, and then down like a set of stairs. And they would flatten out the step of the stairs, and they would plant their vegetables and their fruits and whatever else they wanted on those stairs. This allowed them to get their irrigation to there, and it also created like a diverse ecosystem where they could plant vegetables that did better up in the colder climates, way up at the top of the mountain, and then the vegetables that didn't do so well down in a little bit warmer at the bottom of the mountain. For an ancient South American culture, the Incas had come up with very intelligent ways to spread out and to become a greater nation. One of these was a plant in South America called the coca plant, which is the leaves off of what we call now the cocaine plant. And these leaves were seen as both magical and sacred. It had, as I said, like both religious and medicinal purposes. One of the first purposes they used was it was used to ease pain and to give energy to workers. So as people were working all day and they had a lot to get done, then they would chew on the leaves of the coca plant, and it would give them strength as well as energy. It was also used during surgeries as a minor anesthetic, which during their time, a lot of the brain surgery was becoming more and more prominent, and it was becoming better during this time. On the other hand, the coca plant was seen as a very sacred and a rare commodity, and it was prized above gold and silver, they were very abundant there. The Incas managed to come up with a good weapon and armor system for their time, which helped them in their military conquest. Close-range weapons were usually the axe, the sword, and the club, and they used bronze as well as stone and a hard wood to create these weapons. And the distance weapons that they used at the time were the slings, and the Incas were known to lance rocks the size of chicken eggs up to very accurately to 100 feet. And the armor was a little bit more crude. They didn't have as well-made armor, but they did have leather rawhide armor, as well as a thick cloth or like a woven reed type armor and shield. It was pretty effective against other South American villages and tribes, but it was very, very ineffective against Spanish made weapons that were made of steel. Their metalwork at the time, which they did with the gold and silver, was very unique and very elaborate and detailed. But thanks to the Spanish conquistadors, we don't have much of it today. The Spanish melted all of the gold and silver that they'd found after they had conquered the Inca people. The ceramics, however, we have today, and many pieces are still found intact. It was like a pottery or clay that they used, and very detailed and beautiful pictures were painted on the sides of these. And some of the pictures that they painted were different animals or daily life scenes or war scene. And a common ceramic that they had was like a jar used to hold liquids. One of the things that helped the Incas conquer so many people were the roads that they had. They had managed to build a very extensive and unique road system, I guess. They didn't pave it, but it was like packed down, and so that they could travel very quickly and their messengers could get to and from places without having to, climb through swamps or anything like that. So these roads crossed from the very edges of the continent, and they weren't paved because they didn't have the wheel yet, so they didn't have a need for that. And the road system has been compared to that of the Romans, which was, if any of you know, it was a very useful and effective tool in the Roman conquest. These roads managed to cross mountains, jungles, deserts, and all sorts of different terrains. They had built bridges out of stone and rope, and they had even built tunnels. Collectively, 14,000 miles had been built by the Incas in that short time. In order to grow, the Incas had to either form peaceful treaties with the neighboring people, or they had to conquer them. But the Incas, they used a combination of both. If people wouldn't go peacefully, then they would move in the army, and the army would take over, and they would make them succumb to their loss. These military tactics, which were both, like I said, the peaceful and also a very aggressive stance, helped the Incas expand across 6 different modern-day countries right now. There were Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. Using less than 200 soldiers, Pizarro had overcome a very, very impressive Inca empire. The Incas had managed to become one of the largest and most intriguing races in this time, and the Incas had utilized many different and creative ways to to live their daily lives and as well as expand their empire. As advanced as they were in that time, they had still managed to succumb to a very small and somewhat superior Spanish force. We can still learn from these people. There are things that they did so well that it still is there today, such as like the ruins. And we as a people right now live in an age of technology, and we depend on computers and our iPods and everything. And I think if we took a step back and learned from these people and applied it in our daily lives, we could become a nation that is stronger as a whole.